France's new Prime Minister, Sébastien Lecornu, has offered to freeze Emmanuel Macron's unpopular pension reform. That's as part of a deal with the Socialist Party. In return, the Socialists, who are a key swing vote in Parliament, have agreed not to vote no confidence in the government. Lecornu, Macron's sixth Prime Minister in less than 2 years, announced the concession as he tries to keep his cabinet alive long enough to pass a much-needed austerity budget by the end of the year. Well, let's go a little deeper with this story in our Perspective segment. Joining us now is Paul Smith, the head of modern languages at the University of Nottingham and a specialist in French politics. Thank you very much for joining us on France 24.
Thank you very much for having me, Karis.
This is a bold move by Sébastien Lecornu on Tuesday, but perhaps you would say he didn't have much of a choice, would you?
No, he didn't really. I mean, I think it was still a surprise that he went as far as he did yesterday in his in outlining his general policy, and it's a great. I wouldn't say triumph, but it's certainly a success for the Socialist Party, and it showed what can be done if you're willing to negotiate, but also willing to push things as far as you possibly can. Lecornu was kind of backed into a corner, and very last minute he sent a text to Olivier Faure, leader of the Socialists, to say that that was what he was going to do, to announce the suspension of the reform. And Olivier Faure apparently replied, say it in front of Parliament. And when he did, apparently Faure sort of tilted his head towards his fellow socialists and said, that's what we were after. So a surprising move. We thought there'd be something of that sort in the speech, but to go all that way was pretty dramatic.
And Lecornu also announced that his government wouldn't use Article 49.3 of the Constitution, which is the mechanism that allows the government to pass a law through Parliament without debate by force, which was, of course, used for this pension reform. Do you think this move by Lecornu is going to be a problem for him? I mean, there's expected to be very fierce debate over this budget.
Yeah, I think there are other mechanisms. Articles 40 and 44 allow the government to a certain amount of control over specifically the budget and the debate in Parliament. So it's not a complete concession, but 49.3 was certainly, or not using 49.3 was something the Socialists had also called for. I think what Lecornu was struggling with before yesterday was the idea of convincing particularly the Socialists, that he's a good faith actor, that the talk about let's debate this in Parliament, everything is on the table, nothing is to be excluded, or at least a lot of the things that you want to discuss in Parliament are there. And getting that far was really the key part, was really the key to the government and this budget. So persuading the left, the right have pretty much been shored up. Actually, it's very interesting that Wauquiez announced that Les Républicains will not vote censorship. They might not support the government necessarily, although I think there are concessions there as well that keep the right on board. But certainly it was this idea of, as I say, that his offer of, come on, let's debate this budget seriously, was actually in good faith. And I think yesterday was kind of the act that puts that in place and takes this forward for the possibility to properly debate a budget.
You said that you were surprised a little bit by how far Lecornu went with suspending this pension reform. We know that it was really set to be the main economic legacy of Emmanuel Macron. It was really like one of his main projects. How do you think he feels about this, especially after having withstood that really fierce opposition on the streets of France during those protests?
Well, I think there's a lot of this is to do, in politics, an awful lot of decisions depend on timing. And I suspect, I'm sure that Macron is deeply disappointed that this has happened, and certainly on the right, and even amongst Macron's own supporters, the Macronistes are very hesitant about what's been done. The idea of suspending the reform, and as you say, this was going to be they call it the beacon, the phare, this particular measure. And to put it back to the next presidential, there are two things happening there. Obviously, basically saying this has failed, or it's certainly not been understood by the French people, and that's another issue one can talk about another time, but also the kind of setting the agenda for 2027. So what Macron is saying is that, okay, you don't agree with my reform, but in essence, this is going to be one of the key issues of 2027, and anybody else who wants to follow me, whoever wants to be the next president of France, is really going to have to address this then. So, okay, it's postponing at a certain cost as well, although actually in the grand scheme of things, that cost is not enormous, but suspending and holding it off to another time, but really forcing everybody to focus their minds, their attention on it for 2027.
You mentioned the cost there. You say it's not enormous, but it also comes as credit agencies are due to update their ratings of France in the coming months. And, I know you're not an economist, but is Lecornu setting France, or at least the government and its finances, up for a little bit of trouble ahead?
Well, he's certainly setting an ambitious budget. He's still talking about making 30 billion euros worth of cuts in the budget in various different ways, raising taxes in some places, cutting not so much benefits, cutting benefits, but also cutting state support for certain programs. So that's the where we're going to make economies. But also, it's quite interesting to read a report the other day that suggested that another change of government and indeed another dissolution would actually cost more than the concession that's being made in terms of pushing the pensions reform. So I think that, yes, you're right that credit agencies might look at downgrading France, but I think above all, what everybody's looking for, and your earlier guest talking about the impact on business of all of this political uncertainty, is at least giving some kind of stability. And of course, it's not just stability with regard to credit agencies, but also stability in terms of France's relationships within the EU, with its closest trading partners, particularly with Germany, and looking at the wider international picture as well. So there are a lot of issues that hang on this.
And stability is an important word because in the past few weeks, as you know, we've seen political drama that we've never really seen before in modern France, at least. Lecornu resigning hours after naming his cabinet, Macron accepting that resignation but reappointing him prime minister days later. Do you think all this instability will have consequences not only for Macron's party going ahead, but do you think it will make one party, for example, the far right's National Rally, will it make them look like the stable, reasonable choice going into 2027 presidential elections?
I think that this offers a lot of opportunities to a lot of different people. I think you're right that obviously the National Rally, Le Pen and company, will try to make as much political capital out of this. I mean, we still don't know if the budget's going to pass. Here we are, the Wednesday after the Tuesday before, thinking, well, there'll be a budget and then everything will be plain sailing to 2027. There are absolutely no guarantees of that. The National Rally will simply try to make as much out of this as they possibly can. If a budget is passed and if the government is able to carry on governing, then the next focus for them will be on Le Pen's appeal against her ineligibility. But also the other party that's going to really attempt to make something out of this and its relationship with the rest of the left, with the Socialists. Because within the balance, okay, the Socialists didn't get to be prime minister. We don't have a Socialist prime minister in France, but in terms of the relationship with the left, the Socialists have shown on the left that there is scope for negotiation, and they've obtained, and particularly in their relationship with the trade unions, but also in relation to the far left, La France Insoumise, they've shown that that they have the ability to negotiate. So there is now going to be, we're kind of into the end of Macron, if you like. Let's imagine that we actually have a stable situation for the next year. It might not happen. I'm not predicting that it'll be stable all the way through, but the parties will now be beginning to think municipal elections, which are happening in the spring, and then also candidates will be thinking about what happens for 2027. Les Républicains, Retailleau and company will be thinking about how all of this works out within their own parties as well. So there is a lot of reflection to go on, and who benefits most from this. And you also mentioned Macron's party. It's very difficult to see who is going to emerge. There are several candidates. Who's going to emerge as the kind of the not so much the air, but who's going to take on that kind of centre position in politics, or if the whole of that centre is going to kind of completely fragment, break up into different constituent pieces.
Indeed. Paul Smith, thank you very much for your insight. Paul Smith from the University of Nottingham there.